Wow. So we're sowing seeds of growth, and next month we're going to be sowing seeds of creativity. And I drove to Ojo Caliente just to soak. Did you ever need to just soak? So it was good to soak some thoughts, good to look at the cliffs, good to look at the view and the blue skies and the fall colors. And it reminded me of when I was traveling to California from Arizona, and it was about a 400-mile drive every other weekend for about a 4-day weekend. I was working in northern Arizona and flying across the country doing all kinds of stuff. And then I would hop in my car and I would drive every other weekend to visit my mom, make sure that she had all of her needs taken care of when she was declining in health. And it was a couple years, you ever need to go, like a soak. And did you ever need to just come from a place realizing that the tank, so I was driving this, I think it was a Dodge Ram Charger at the time, four-wheeling on the 10 freeway. And it was, instead of being on empty, you have that fuel tank, it could be on empty, or I could have it be on full as far as my energy. It could be really depleting. It could be really depleting for me to make that drive. And so what I did was I relied on my friends, and we thought she was coming home, but she never did come home. We kept preparing the house in anticipation, much like preparing the box for the kittens and the happy, homecoming. And she never did come home, but she held court, had some good quality time with all her sets of friends. That was some of the coordinating that happened. And it could have been really, really, really depleting. So what I got to do was move through my levels of consciousness on that journey, much like I was driving up to Ojo Caliente, just sort of moving through those different colors that we have in our emotions. And even when I would drive from Arizona to California, have you ever made cobbler? Do you know with the holidays coming up, it's good to know a good recipe for cobbler? Well, what I do is I go to Costco, and I get one of those big pies, and I throw it in my trunk, and then I would drive down what they call the Yarnell grade. And so it goes swish, swish, swish. And then I would have homemade cobbler with 400 miles of traction on it. It's all warmed up. Yeah, so there's your holiday recipe. And so to go from being, what could have been a running on empty situation, and to have it have that fullness, I know that I had some relief, whether it was cobbler, whether it was being welcomed by friends who would help me coordinate some things. And there's some people in our community who are caretaking like that. They're caretaking for their grandkids, caretaking for their spouses. I actually have a friend who's been taking care of her ex-husband and her husband. That's why can you imagine? Oh my gosh. No, I can't imagine. So talk about needing a full tank. Wee-wee. So if you've ever needed to have relief, and sometimes do we cling on what's not useful, or do we cling on something that feels like depletion or feels like emptiness? And leaves fall every year. They just do this naturally. They just let go, and knowing that there's going to be new growth in the spring, and that it's going to be not just an empty tree, but then there's going to be leaves. And so we can refresh and renew, much like going up to take a soak at Ojo Caliente, and we can replenish, and we can know in our hearts what's essential to keep, what we can really let be and let go so that it doesn't drain us, and to have it be easy and effortless, and also we can know that we can start anew and replenish and allow those around us to be in that space. So our book of the year is A New Design for Living, and it's by Dr. Ernest Holmes, who founded The Science of Mind, which is a guide for spiritual living. And I invite you to take some notes today. If you want to take some notes, feel free. In your program, there's some blank space there. So he talks about, we have different chapters, and that's where our topic comes. Most of our top topics come from that book, and they're little paragraphs, and it's wonderful. So he encourages us to start to accept life. And we get to move through different levels of consciousness, whether we're feeling like we're on empty, or whether we're knowing we're having even more of a full tank and having some cobbler. So David Spangler in The Laws of Manifestation, which is our book of the month. So we have a book of the year, and then we also have a book of the month. And this is The Laws of Manifestation. And it's super because, I thought it was going to be kind of like The Secret and that kind of thing, but no, it's much deeper than that. So if you want to dig deep, yet it's not too big. He talks about manifestation, and because we're so good at manifesting some things, right? Oh boy, can I manifest, right? There's things that I'm demonstrating all the time. So he says, David Spangler, and he's from Finhorn, he says, manifestation is essentially a means by which God expresses himself or herself. It's a revelation in action, revealing more to the individual about his or her basic divine nature, his or her oneness with the whole. Who knew? Who knew that when we were running around manifesting parking places and princes and Porsches and palaces, that manifestation is really about expressing God, that it's really about spirit expressing itself to the fullest. So to understand the different ways in which we express, in alignment with today's talk topic of Start to Accept Life, we have some co-creation material that Reverend Dr. Kathy Hearn was here in July, and she shared this with us. And it's amazing because Marcia Sutton, Reverend Dr. Marcia Sutton, she's got like 2 honorary doctorates and had worked with Lloyd Strom to come up with these models of consciousness. And I had first heard about it way back when with Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith. And so there's kingdoms. And if you don't like the word kingdom, don't use it. There's kingdoms of consciousness, which means a realm, if you look it up in Webster. It's a realm or it's a model of consciousness. Or you could just say it's consciousness. So there's 4 different levels of consciousness. So imagine driving 400 miles every other weekend, and we're moving through different levels of consciousness. Or up to Ojo Caliente for a soak. And I have all these thoughts and feelings and plans and things like that, goals. There's different realms. So there's different kingdoms or realms of consciousness. And in levels 1 and level 2, it brings us wisdom. And in levels 3 and 4, it brings us more of a unitive and a oneness experience that it's more in alignment with the divine, as Kamatara was talking about. It brings us faith. So levels 1 and 2, we have knowledge and wisdom of things that we want to transcend or we want to have happen or manifest. And in levels 3 and 4, we are knowing that we're having movement in faith, that we're of oneness. So we have wisdom that we are, and then we have faith. And so we know that we're in Kingdom 1 when we find ourselves, maybe we look at ourselves finding events that are beyond our control. And we're saying, well, I can't change it. Or I'm being tossed about. Things are happening to me. And reality is something that's set, and I can't change it. And we know that we're in Kingdom 1 when we hear ourselves saying, why does this always happen to me? We see a pattern that keeps reoccurring. The kinds of thoughts and feelings that are associated with this realm would be failure, self-pity, being a martyr, self-righteousness, being envious, judgmental, gossiping, defending or protecting something, justifying, holding grudges, feelings that there's something missing or wrong or broken. So let's breathe. Let's breathe. This is what, we see on Cynical News Network, CNN Network. And so it's a worldview that it's a dangerous world, or that it's not safe, and that life is unpredictable, and that there's something that's beyond my control. And ultimately, it might be scary. It might be miserable. It might lead to having an empty tank instead of having a full tank. So here's an example. At some point, sometimes we're so fed up with being in Kingdom 1. Sometimes we're so fed up, sometimes we bottom out. Sometimes we just get tired, we get fatigued, and feel sort of at effect. And we figure that there's got to be more. There's got to be more to life than what we're seeing on the news. And so we ask for help. And so here's an example. I have some friends who we spend an afternoon or a morning, and we go around to each other's homes and get ourselves uncluttered, or have a project that it's a motivator to help get us out of that being at effect or cluttered or whatever that is, or feeling like we have an empty tank because there's more horsepower. There's more MPGs happening. It's more high-octane fuel because we call upon that and we ask for help. And so we say to ourselves, there's got to be another way than just hanging out in this level one. So we might call a friend who can actively listen. We might sort our stuff. We might seek a support group. We might take a class. We might have some spiritual coaching with some of our licensed practitioners here. We might have counseling. We might just rely on something that's new that's going to give us strength and courage. So these steps, I mean, it's a sign of strength. These steps, and there's so many great blessings out of it because it's getting us out of what victimhood there might be in Kingdom 1. Because we're reaching out, we're reaching up. And so we have to have a sense of what's happening. So we make sense of what's happening in Kingdom 1. And so again, take another breath. There's these realms of wisdom and these realms of faith. And this is a picture of the Haymez. And if we look at the one, it's dualistic thinking, like I'm separated from my good. Or I could be a victim, and things could be happening to me. And then what we do is we move up in that consciousness, and then things begin to happen by me. And so to move to the realm of Kingdom 2, we have to give up victimhood. So we give up blame, and we get to have a new sense of responsibility. So in order to thrive in this area, we have spiritual tools. We may pick up a book. We may do some journaling. We may do some intention setting with affirmations, some creative visualization, mind mapping. I listen to stuff on YouTube. There's all kinds of stuff out there. Vision boards. I think the women's group here is going to do some vision boards, and they're going to have a meeting this afternoon that's going to have some wonderful, I'm sure, good things that we can all apply. And so we use these spiritual principles and practices for specific purposes. And so that's the realm of level 2. So imagine shifting gears in that car as we're driving across the desert. And so it also says that we're part of a great tradition because we can point to the words of Jesus the Christ, who is a way shower, an example, not an exception, but a way shower that we can apply many of the thoughts and the words. It's relevant to our life today. So he said, as we believe, it is done unto us. And so as we apply spiritual tools, our lives are more orderly, they're more predictable. We're not just being tossed about. So as we read in the Science of Mind and Spirit, in fact, Dr. Ernest Holmes had a radio show. He says, there's a power for good in the universe, and you can use it, right? And so we direct our lives with that intention and attention. And we understand that we can master this law of cause and effect. So there's some universal laws like gravity and electricity. There's a universal law that corresponds to as we believe it is done unto us. So we understand. And it's great because we could just hang out and live in Kingdom 2 forever, goal setting, and we can just hang out there, have things be nice and orderly. And then sometimes there might be a storm. Sometimes the roof might leak if there's a storm. Sometimes there might be an earthquake. Sometimes there might be an accident. There's something that's unanticipated. There might be a diagnosis. There might be something that happens. Loss of a loved one, loss of our life's work, loss of a relationship. And we don't know where it came from. We don't understand. So we're hanging out in that realm of consciousness too, of that things can happen by me and we can manifest and all that. We're directing our lives, and we really could live in that realm. But we don't know where some of these things come from. And we don't understand, like, how could I have created this, like an earthquake? How could I have created this earthquake? Well, all of those are jumping off points for us to move into wholeness, into oneness, and for us to move into consciousness of Kingdom 3. And what that is the consciousness of through me, The consciousness of things are happening through me. And to enter this realm, what we need to do is to leave at the door, leave control. Because we realize that there is more going on here than just ourselves. There is some sort of larger pattern. There's an even greater thing, something even greater than we could even think of that's coming through. Many people who had the hurricane in New Orleans say that there was a whole rebirth that happened for that place, and I've been there before and after. I'd have to, Linda Rowland's not here, but I'd have to ask her what her family thinks. But we find ourselves open to letting things come through. Letting things, something even greater than we can think of, to come through. And so maybe there's that love intelligence, there's the divine guidance, there's something that we have not tapped into yet. There's the greater yet to be. There's that guide for our desires, and we can have that guide our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions in Kingdom 3 as we realize that there is a consciousness that is moving through me. So here's a metaphor. The ocean being God, and then the extension of us as the wave. There's that connection in that through me consciousness, in that level 3 realm, that through me. There's that, we're the ray of the sun, so that God would represent the sun, and we're the ray of the sun. And so Jesus the Christ said, was in this through me consciousness that when he said, it is not I, but the Father within that does the work. In the language of his time, in Aramaic, he used the word father, which it's very an intimate term. It's more like daddy. So he said it's actually closer to that intimate love. And it's not I, but daddy that does the work. And imagine that close relationship with spirit. There's that through me consciousness. And so it's a feeling of closeness that's integral here. There's a closeness, there's a connection, there's a unified field that we're in already. And spiritual practices that support this are meditation. And so we have stillness so that we can get our chatter out of the way so that we can be in that still place and allow what wants to come through us. It's useful. So is visioning. Visioning, which it has us inquiring, is what is the divine ideal? And we have that at 11:30 here in the sanctuary for your own life. So we're also using affirmative prayer throughout. So in level 2, in level 3, we're using affirmative prayer. In level 3, where there's the through me, like more open and receptive consciousness, where we may not be so specific and narrow to just say, I want a prince, or a palace, or a Porsche, or that parking space right there. We are letting be and knowing that Kingdom 3 is the place where our intention is letting things be. So we have our intention and our attention on that. And Dr. Ernest Holmes would call it the divine givingness of spirit. And like the hot springs where I was yesterday, there was that flow, so that through me, that being that instrument, being that vessel. And in this realm of level 3, again, the words of Jesus the Christ said, not my will, but thine be done. Because level 2 might be my will of making my best choices. But level 3 would be that through me consciousness. And it may not make sense in level 1. Not your will, but God's will. They might say, if you went to a level 1 consciousness, and we all move in and out of these consciousness stages throughout the day, if you were in a level 1, like, oh, not this again, or oh man, I'm feeling depleted, or man, I got my tank on empty. If we went to someone in a Kingdom 1 consciousness and said, not your will, but God's will, they might say, oh, great. Now, someone else is going to impose their will on me. And in Kingdom 2, we may know some affirmations. We know that treasure maps work well. But thy will be done. What? We've got our treasure maps. What? But thy will be done. What? So in Kingdom 3, we can stand with St. Francis and say, what? Just kidding. Just see it if you're... just having fun. You might have more fun. We might have more fun in level 3. So in Kingdom 3, we can stand with St. Francis when he prays. And he says, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me so love. And grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console. To be that instrument, that as-me consciousness. Whew, so we can hear that there's a shift in focus. And, level 2, we've been upgrading or improving things. And to be that blessing where things happen, to be the vessel. Not only for ourselves, for others. And so level 3, that through me consciousness. We would probably amend Dr. Holmes' radio show to say, there's a power for good in the universe, and it can use me. Right? Now, if we are thinking about manifestation in level 3, as we open to a greater power and a greater presence, we may come from peace, we may come from compassion to console. As we open to a greater presence and passion in our life, we allow it to move through us and as us, without obstruction, without limitation. We know that it becomes easier, that we have more of a full tank, and that it may be more effortless than before. It may be easier. It may be more effortless. And it's not that we can just hop from level 1, the happening to me, to the as me. It's not that we just hop into that through me realm or as me. As we spend time in Kingdom 2, we learn that Spirit is good. Yeah, we set our goals, we have our intentions. We know that we see the results. We see what's happening in our lives, that we may feel a bit more healthy. We may feel a bit more having a full tank. And so this realm is a place of surrender where we hand over the control to Spirit. So they've got the steering wheel. We've got the co-pilot there. And we know that there's co-creation happening. And so we trust. We trust that we're navigating and that we have that road, which is smooth, that we're on. And so we can spend some time in level 2, we can spend some time in level 3, and yet there's more. So level 4 is the mystical consciousness, the as-me consciousness, the consciousness known as that realm where we know ourselves to be of the one. So we've moved from duality thinking of separation into a sense of there's more oneness in my life, and I begin to see more commonalities. And what do we have to give up to move into level 4? And we all have experiences of this. What do we have to give up? Separation. We release any sense of separation. And so again, in this consciousness, when I and the Father are one, or I and Daddy are one, this is a faithful experience that all are one. There is an allness. And in the words of the mystics, St. Catherine of Siena of Italy of the 14th century, we don't always have to go back that far. We could have an experience right here and right now. But she said that the soul makes her home like the fish in the sea and the sea in the fish. So there's that unity of consciousness, the oneness, the love, the peace, the unification. And can you feel the unification of the oneness of that? Yeah, try that on, like your hat. When it comes to manifestation in Kingdom 4, Dr. Ernest Holmes says, mystics intuitively perceive truth without process. It's a natural occurrence. And here we know that there's no lack, that the oneness already exists. And would we use affirmative prayer? Does that move us away from some separation and more into oneness? We could. We can know that it's revealing the highest and best good, that there's divine true action and grand unfoldment happening. We may be less specific about that parking space, but we just know that we're provided for and that all needs are met. Would we meditate in Kingdom 4? Probably more than ever. Yeah. So as the 16th century, so we're moving up in the world, the 16th century mystic from India, Marabi says, my love is in my house. Now, if you knew love was in your house, wouldn't you want to hang out there? Yeah. And not come from an empty tank, but know that that tank is already full, that that house is full of love. And so I believe that opportunity exists in all these kingdoms and that we can thread these experiences throughout our day. And it's possible to be living in level 2 with the by me. Things are happening by me and I'm manifesting and good things are happening in my life. And I may be living in that as me consciousness where I'm finding that my thoughts and feelings are just natural and intuitive things that are happening. And we can remember things that happen in Kingdom 1 if I notice them and, am I blaming? Is there shame? Is there self-righteousness? Is there gossiping? Is there something that's not promoting oneness in my life, but it's promoting separation? Is there something that needs my attention in level 1 or level 2? And what we want to do is buoy ourselves up to level 2, level 3, level 4. And so sometimes during election times, I notice that I'm buoyed back down to level 1. Sometimes the 49ers have not won a game. Not even yet. And what are we going to do? Take the spell off. Okay, Halloween's coming up. Take the spell off the 49ers. So that's level 1. And sometimes we might be focusing on pain or sadness of the past, or that something's wrong, or we approach life that, there's something wrong, or there's something missing. And so to just notice when I'm in level 1, and to notice that I can move back into that oneness. So here's another example. Imagine a person living in Kingdoms 2 and Kingdoms 3. And they're grounded and just kind of oming out and having a good time and cruising right along. And there might be a car accident. Or there might be a conversation. Or there might be something that's unanticipated. There might be a loss of a relationship, a loss of a job. There might be a loss of dignity. There might be, I'm having to take on more responsibility and be accountable. And, things that may be unanticipated. And so we now have the tools to re-understand, to have that foundation and that grounding in level 2. And then we can move up and be a little bit more lighter and free. So from that to it, or that by me consciousness in level 2, to the as me, and being more in the flow. And so we can move up our consciousness in the situation. It's still the same situation that I didn't anticipate. So which of these 4 states of consciousness are you in? And so if we think about that, maybe notice this week, which state of consciousness am I in? And it's also going to affect the way that people hear what we have to say. If they're in a level 1 consciousness, and I'm in a level 2 consciousness, and I've got this goal, or I'm moving toward whatever that is, it's going to determine what people hear, how they hear things. It's going to determine what I say to them, how it's heard. So if we take our topic today, start to accept life. You just take our topic. And so a person in level 1 might say, accept. That means put up with. I don't want to put up with that. And they might say that about life, current circumstances, that it's conditional. I'm tied down to whatever that is. I'm stuck. I'm feeling limited. I'm feeling that it's not enough happening. She's telling me to put up with that stuff, and I'm already putting up with enough. Does that make sense? Level 1, kind of, we might have that knee jerk kind of, or whatever. If I was in level 2 and I heard the phrase, start to accept life. Again, that's the by me consciousness, the manifesting consciousness. I'd probably get really jazzed. I might interpret the word accept as receive. I might be like a happy kitten, happy puppy dog, and just say, wow, I am so jazzed because I heard that word. And I might say, bring it on. Because I'm aware that there's a process, there's a creative process, and it's for me, that there's a universe that's for me. That I'm moving in the oneness. And so it's good, and I realize that I'm at choice in level 2. I'm at choice. And it reminds me of the Louise Hay that you run to the ocean. Remember that ocean we talked about earlier? You run to the ocean. We've all heard this. Louise Hay says you run to the ocean with a bathtub or a teaspoon. That's level 2. And we start to accept life. That's what I might see at level 2. And then from the point of view at level 3 consciousness is life. Start to accept life. Life actually has a capital L. It's spirit. Start to accept spirit. And Ernest Holmes refers to it as the infinite good, as divine nature. And we don't have to go to an outside source for it, but it's within us. It's already pouring itself through us. Spirit is moving through us. We are the instrument. We are the vessel of that. And to continually be open to expressing more good and more God. And to start afresh every moment. So we can relieve. We can be relieved. We can be more receptive. We can be more open. And depending on our realms of receptivity, we can run to the ocean. We can run across 400 miles to visit family and to see that we're moving forward in faith, pulling forth all the wisdom and moving forward in faith, and knowing that we're relying on the source energy to have a full tank and not just be running on empty, to know that we have that plenty of fuel that we're tapped into. It's like making cobbler. I mean, how do you like them apples? Making cobbler, oh, what a relief that we can know that we have the supreme manifester that is happening as us. So we move from having things to us. Then we know that we can have things be by us. And then through us, we are the instrument. And then as us, we have even more an experience of oneness and love and light. And so how about some of this delicious cobbler? And let's move into affirmative prayer. And just to know that we're provided for in this infinite place of good. And that we are in this place of the supreme manifester. Knowing that we have this place, that Spirit is all. Spirit is all that there is as we move in oneness. As we move in joy. And start to accept life. You ready? So just knowing that there is the infinite presence, and there's some beautiful prayers that are in here, and knowing that our practitioners are supporting with such love and unconditional compassion. No matter what the condition, no matter what the space, knowing that there is a space of grace in this place, and there is the infinite good which is unfolding right here and right now. It is that which is filled with the loving essence and presence of the divine nature. And it is that which is so natural and good in this creativity and moving forward in growth, knowing that there is the beauty which shows up in the way that we show up. So allowing ourselves to start to accept life in this unified field of consciousness and connection, knowing that there is this connection and oneness already. It is this gift already received, and being open to these new realms and vistas, and being able to just soak, to soak in the aliveness of who we truly are and be ourselves even more fully. I'm grateful in knowing that the appreciation just unfolds in beautiful ways. There is gratitude and compassion and pure joy and total love. And I release this word into the creative medium, knowing that it is carried forward with the power and the presence of all of the resource of the source energy of the universe. And so be it, and so it is.